Good evening. I am Commissioner Malloy. Welcome to the Human Capital Committee of the Whole meeting. I want to thank all of our commissioners tonight who are here. I believe we have one commissioner online, Commissioner Griffin. We do have a commissioner who couldn't be here this evening, Commissioner Patterson. But thank you to our commissioners. Hello to the State Monitor and to Deputy Turner for leading us tonight. So welcome. Before we get started, I want to just focus people's attention to our 2023 through 2028 board goals. We have 4 academic goals that we've worked hard to come up with, and our administration is going to be implementing and executing these goals over the next 5 years. Obviously, our focus is literacy, but also math and increasing our number of students earning credits at the 9th grade level. So I just wanted to uplift that at the start of our meeting to help us stay focused on student outcomes. Thank you. All right, can I get a motion to approve the Human Capital Committee of the Whole meeting agenda, please?
Motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
So that was motioned by Vice President LeBron, and seconded by President Elliott. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am. So I read the minutes, and what do I find? A T left off my name. Now, you know. So you all got to go through and find where that T is, but y'all left the T off.
Okay.
So just to know that I've read the minutes.
Yeah, yes, you did. And I did not catch that, so thank you so much, President Elliott.
I
Two
caught
Ts.
it.
2 Ts. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on. There is no speakers list this evening, and so I just need to get a motion to review and accept the minutes from the March 19th, 2024 meeting. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Santiago, seconded by Vice President LeBron. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and so this should be a fairly quick meeting this evening. I'll cross my fingers. I hope I didn't just jinx it. But this evening, we're going to be we're going to be discussing our staff transfers and employee wellness programs. And our Chief of Human Capital, Dr. Chris Miller, is here to present that for us. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Malloy, Deputy Superintendent Turner, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron, Superintendent Alicea, and members of the board. This evening, we're talking about staff transfers and employee wellness and care. My name is Chris Miller. I'm the Chief of Human Capital for the district. And as we remind, we are the Office of Human Capital, and we strive to recruit, develop, support, and retain the most effective, diverse staff. Moving forward, we're going to be actually changing that mission statement to be recruit, grow, and retain the most effective, diverse staff so that we mirror the strategic plan and the language that's in the strategic plan. Tonight, we will be highlighting, or I will be highlighting, the staff transfer process and speaking to some of our employee wellness initiatives. And I'm going to start us right off with just reminding the community where we have been. And in November 2023, the Board of Education and Superintendent Peluso launched Invest in Tomorrow, which is the district's vision for the future as it begins the implementation of a comprehensive school reconfiguration plan. Invest in Tomorrow, as we know, will provide better learning opportunities for our students, ensure the effective use of our modernized facilities, and meet the diverse interests of students. This naturally, all of this change naturally has an impact on our staff in the district, and given this reconfiguration plan, there will be opportunities for our staff to transfer into new roles that align with their skills and their interests in order to meet the needs of our students. Additionally, it's important to note that some staff must transfer due to displacement because their schools are closing or the grade levels at their schools are changing. And we understand that this significant change produces some emotion for staff and for students and for families because there is change. And we are committed to supporting our staff through this transition, working with our labor union partners to ensure a smooth process and continued excellence for the education of our students. So this slide summarizes all of those changes with relative to school closures and reconfiguration. Our contracts with each of our labor unions speak to a transfer process and speak to a process that the district and the staff should follow when these types of situations occur, when we have school closures or when we have displacement or when we have changes in staffing levels. And so there are staff who each year have the ability to voluntarily elect to transfer elsewhere. And then there's non-voluntary transfer, such as what we are experiencing given the displacement, given school closures and reconfiguration. I do want to remind, though, that we have some priorities in this process to advantage schools of greatest need, be it our receivership schools or the new schools that we're opening. So as we've talked about this work and we've planned for this work, we've prioritized those schools to ensure a new vision at those schools, a new approach at those schools, to ensure turnaround in the district and improvement. So we are prioritizing schools that you see listed there, but all working with all of our schools to ensure that they are fully staffed. To give you some context, in a typical school year, this shows you by contract unit the typical number of staff that are engaged in a transfer process, typically, right? And then you see data for this year. So the process for this year is ongoing. But you see that it's about 3 times the volume. And so with that, that's 3 times the number of people that are engaged, 3 times the number of people that we have to assist, 3 times the number of people that we have to care for in this process. The transfer process is a lengthy process. I mentioned that it is outlined in our collective bargaining agreements. Just to kind of give you a sense, and you certainly don't need to know every step on this timeline, but this just very big picture shows you that this was a process that started many, many months ago. And it actually kicked off yesterday where we had our first set of transfer moments. But these protocols that we have establish a system that ensures that we are thoughtful, that we are working in partnership, and that we are transparent about the ways in which staff can move around in our district. And it certainly takes a village, and so I need to thank all the people that are involved, the staff who apply, who put in every day for our students and for their colleagues, our principals who have to invest, and they spend a good 5-6 weeks reviewing and considering staff when staff request to transfer into their school. And there's a process for working with school-based planning teams and interviewing and screening and looking at applicants who want to transfer. Certainly, we do this work in partnership with labor and our union leadership, with our budget and finance team, with IM&T that helps ensure it's an intricate system to collect people's preferences electronically and to ensure that we can use those preferences, that principals are going to interview and rank candidates, and that's all going to go systematically into some system that we're able to use. And so we're ever grateful for the work of our friends in IM&T, in particular Jeremy Cranker, who assists our team in the Office of Human Capital. Our school chiefs have done incredible work. This is a voluminous process, but just working with their principals and guiding and supporting them, we're opening several schools. So that's a lot of planning, a lot of consideration, and support that is needed. Our teaching and learning, our special education departments and student support services that are providing guidance and support to assist schools, school-based planning teams, and the Office of Human Capital in ensuring that we're doing this work well. We partner with the Monroe County Civil Service Office to ensure that as we look at impacts, we are aligned with what they expect and what they see in the data relative to civil service employees. And then lastly, the folks within the Office of Human Capital who've been spending months working through this process. I share that because last evening was the first day of the teacher transfer process. The teacher transfer process actually takes 7 days. And so we start getting people, we do it electronically, they start logging on at 3:30. The process intends to start at 4:15. They were working, and you see on this image here, folks in that room were working until about 9:15, 9:30 last night, just with that first day of transfers. And so that will continue for another 6 days. We're engaged in the transfer process for Bente. We will be with RAP, and we've collected some information from ASAR relative to those members' preferences. But as you can see in this image, it's a very electronic process. You see people with laptops, you see computer terminals set up, you see labor partners in the room. We have RTA, Martha Keating and Matt Livonis in the room. We have team working together, and at the same time, simultaneously, you have a teacher who is in order to share what their preference is for transfer. You have people that are on deck waiting their turn, who are communicating with people who are at that table, asking questions, getting support from their union. Because as spots fill up, people have to change maybe where their preferences are. So it's a very lengthy process, but one which gives our employees some control, but also gives our principals some control and autonomy in the process so that they have some preferences that are fulfilled as well. So it is a process of coming together that's carefully orchestrated to ensure that we can consider staff in our district and move them to where they want to be and to where they're going to be best fit. To ensure that, right, if any one of us didn't know where we were going to be working next school year, we might have some anxiety or we might be just worried, right? So that's a normal thing that goes on in our district, that you've got, as I mentioned, there's over 1,000 people involved in the transfer process right now. Some of them know as a result of last night where they're going to be, but it's a process over the next few weeks to ensure that we support folks and get them where they need to be. We want to help staff through this process. Sometimes it leads to great victory and great wonder and enjoyment because they're going to be someplace that they maybe have hoped to be for a few years. And for others, if their school is closing, where they've worked their career, they are looking for a new spot to land. And yet for others, they may not get their first choice and they may not get to transfer to where they want to be. And so there's maybe some disappointment there. So it's an emotional process. And so we take great care to ensure that there's ways that they can engage with their union representatives, with our employee benefits team, and with our team to ensure that they're supported throughout this process. It is a staff-focused process, right? That's how it's set up. We have our employee assistance program and other supports in place to assist our staff. So that's essentially the transfer process. It will continue for a few more weeks. And then that opens the door to us massively trying to fill any remaining vacancies with external hires. And so we hit the ground running with that as soon as the transfer process is conducted. So this might be a good spot to break if there are any questions before we shift to wellness.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller. I do want to recognize that in addition to Commissioner Griffin online, we also have Commissioner Simmons, who has joined us as well on the Zoom. All right, with that being said, I'm going to start with the Zoom. Any commissioners have any questions so far regarding this, the first part of this presentation regarding the staff transfer process? Are there any hands? I can't see from here. No hands at this time?
I'll go ahead and say something. I do have a question, and I don't know, we may have touched on it. Can you discuss, there's been a lot of questions around the displaced teachers, and we know that we'll be potentially recovering some of those teachers. Can we acknowledge that publicly so that people have an understanding of how that might work? Is that something we're able to do?
Sure. So there are many displaced teachers because we are closing schools. Perhaps you meant, are you referring to teachers who may be laid off? I'm going to take it to mean you meant layoff.
Correct.
But yes,
Yes.
there are, so we gave notification to about 30 teachers that they were going to be laid off, and we let them know, again, in partnership with our the RTA, that they are our top priority for finding positions. So these 30, we'll use the number 30, these 30 people were all certified elementary tenure area teachers. So that's important to know, right? We're closing schools, right? We have a shrinking student population. We have a dramatic need for special education teachers, technology teachers, family consumer science, math science, right? Foreign language. We don't have as great a need for elementary teachers. So I think some individuals in our community were surprised that we might have some layoffs when they have heard we have tremendous need for recruitment. We do have tremendous need for recruitment. But at the elementary tenure area, we have a slight abundance at this moment in time of certified elementary teachers. So we'll be working with them. So a couple things we've done. We've let them know that they are our top priority, and they truly are. We want to ensure that we can find each of them a spot. And as the days go on, we are getting retirements or we will get resignations. And so we do anticipate that those 30 people will have an opportunity to find their way back into an elementary teacher position. Anyone that's laid off is put on a preferred eligibility list, which means they have rights to the next available elementary tenure position for up to 7 years. So they have the first right of refusal in that process. We anticipate that by the start of the school year, we may very well be able to absorb those 30 people. So that's one thing, right? And we let them know that. But the other thing is, I mentioned all those areas where we have dramatic need. We are working with those people to see if they are willing to work towards obtaining certification in another certification area like special education where we have great need. And so we have programs in place through the pipelines and partnerships that I've spoken to the board about before where we're going to help them. And we can help them with certification fees, we can assist them with some tuition assistance, and we can guide and support them on that path. So we are doing those things, and I think you're also familiar with the TCAP process that we have, that we could very well hire any one of these 30 people into a special education position on a TCAP and then work with them. So we very well should be able to retain those 30 people. The other thing that I know that is of interest to the board and is of interest to me is of those 30 people, just to give you a snapshot, 80% of them were white. We talk about last in, first out. So 20% are black female teachers, one Asian teacher, and then the rest were white. So those are things that we obviously look at and are concerned with. But as I mentioned, the 30 people who are layoff should find spots.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Miller, for clarifying that. Commissioner Simmons, did you have any other questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you. That was helpful.
Thank you. Commissioner Griffin, did you want to add anything or do you have any questions? All right, so not hearing from her. I'm going to start down at the other end of the dais. Commissioner Santiago.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. With the reconfiguration that's happening, I'm seeing that that some of the priority is going towards the opening of the new schools and also some schools with receivership. It would be good, at some point before the reconfiguration happens to get a presentation on exactly what does that look like. We know that our schools are definitely going to need support, and so I was just wondering if there's any details on that specifically. It can also go into the board log, if that's helpful. But just wondering, what does that priority look like? What teachers are we really establishing in these buildings that we know are going to be of high need as they open into a new school or as a reconfiguration happens? So if you have any baseline information on that, I'll definitely love to hear that. But I know that some of this is a deeper conversation.
Yeah, I think we could provide more on the question log. In short, I would just say that our agreements with each union, right, our contracts with each union speak to what the process is, and there are some limitations in that process, but they're in the receivership and exempt process, we're able to have some more autonomies than we do in these new schools that are opening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. Any other questions at this time? Okay, moving right down the line, President Elliott.
Thank you, Chairwoman Malloy. So the only statement that I will make that, and I'll continue to make this, is that, as our enrollment decreases, that's going to impact staff. And so I just want to keep that in the forefront. We, particularly because the majority of our funding is personnel related. And if we're going to right-size our district for the future, and I'm thinking future, what's going to be impacted the most in this district, particularly because of not having the number of students that we once had, is personnel. And we have to make the decision, and a difficult decision, to downsize. And so I want us to keep that in the forefront, that we have a financial responsibility to ensure that our district is healthy and is available for, and it's here for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, President Elliott. Vice President LeBron?
Yeah, thank you. Two things. One, I would like to request in the future an actual presentation on exempt schools. I don't think a lot of the board members even understand what exempt school is under RCSD because it's our terminology and it means something very specific. But I see that you list, the exempt school applications deadline starts in November, and how that actually then triggers all the other pieces of this, because some schools will have a different sort of process for transferring because of their exemption status versus others. But that also, in my opinion, should be a yearly sort of reminder, because we are constantly rotating with new staff coming in. And I just think when new staff come in, there's just already enough overwhelmness of like coming into the school, getting acclimated to your colleagues, getting acclimated to the students, to then read the fine print in the contract. I don't know if that's a priority for most staff coming in until they are then impacted by this, because they may be in a school that has an exempt status versus a colleague that is in a school that has a non-exempt status. So I would like in the future under HR, if we can present on exemptions and what that means. Absolutely love that there's a staff transfer timeline that is being presented to us tonight. I would just encourage that we continuously present that timeline even earlier in HR, so that staff has this understanding as well to look back to say, oh, okay, at the board meeting, they said, the transfer application process starts November, because here we are towards the end of this process talking about it, and it's great, and I love this information, because I do think this is the first time we've ever been presented the staff transfer timeline in its entirety as a board. And then the second piece, and I just have to put that it's super confusing when we have to do these layoffs, recalls, and how that's tied into the contract. Because we're also saying, we have President Elliott say we have to downsize in the future, but we also just, as a board, ask the administration to put back 2 recruiters because we still don't have enough certified teachers. And I think that's the key piece here, is that we still need to be actively looking for certified teachers and that we still have gaps. And so I just wanted to uplift that piece, because I think there has to be a balance of us recruiting, but then also ensuring that we can sustain what we're recruiting so that we have an impact, the least amount of impact as we continue to hopefully not decline, but the reality is that that's the trajectory that our numbers are projecting right now. So that's all, and I just want to uplift the thank you for providing this information. Just request that even next year, we probably do it before the transfer starts, so that staff also knows that, hey, transfer is about to start, be on the lookout. Although I want to uplift too that you and your team and RTA both actively engage the staff around this piece. And I thank you, both sides, for working so comprehensively together. As you mentioned, it takes a village right here. But I just think it's always good for staff to also hear it at this level, what the timeline looks like. And just verifies what you are telling them as well, because if you're telling us, and you're telling them, then they know that it's factual, hopefully. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vice President LeBron. Commissioner Griffin, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I got a couple of questions for you. How does the TOAs fit into this scenario?
So teachers, TOAs, teachers on special assignment or teachers on assignment, so they are hired differently. They don't engage necessarily in the transfer process unless they're looking to personally leave their TOA position and move into a different position in the district. But teachers on assignment, principals have some autonomy relative to who they screen, who and how they screen and who they select, because they're on assignment positions within their schools. We liken teachers on assignment to almost being like a member of the leadership team of the school. So at a school, you've got a principal and an assistant principal. You may have an interventionist, you may have a coach, and so they're all working very closely together to meet the needs of students. And so it's typical and standard in many districts that a principal would have a little bit more autonomy in the selection process.
So I just want for clarity and for the public as well. So a teacher on assignment could come in and become a permanent staff member versus someone that is maybe tenured or maybe even possibly going to be displaced. Is that correct?
Well, certainly, if let's just say that there's going to be a new principal at a school. Yes, the principal could select a teacher on assignment to fulfill that role. That's their autonomy. That's their right. That's a right that principals have.
And basically, the teacher just would be out, even though they are certified, tenured, and have the capabilities and to teach and have all the evaluations stating that they're a great teacher. They could be out of a job after 25 to 30 years to a TOA that's only been around for like maybe 1 or 2 years. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
no, that's, I'm not, I mean, it sounds like we're discussing a particular case, which I'm
No,
happy
I'm
to
not.
discuss,
Not at all.
but
I'm
no,
just asking a
that's
question about you.
not exactly how
Okay.
it works. So let's say a math teacher is being displaced from a school. They're going to know that they're displaced and so that they need to participate in the transfer process. That same math teacher could apply for that TOA position so that they could perhaps stay in that school. But, you know, when we think about a principal developing her leadership team and having some autonomy in the school, it's one of the few positions that she's going to get to choose. So we try to support our principals in that manner.
Okay. What is usually the turnaround time when when like a teacher or someone contacts our human capital department? What kind of communication do we give out to these teachers prior to, or if we get voicemails or emails? What is the time frame for that?
Relative to the transfer process?
Relative to the transfer process, or them even having communication with our human capital. What are those? How is the communication delivered, or how do we like if we receive emails or messages or phone calls to our human capital department? What is the time frame for follow up with those teachers?
Sure.
If I could interject just for a moment as the chair of this committee, I just wanted to say that we're discussing things that are specific to the staff transfer. Certainly, we could probably put that on the question log for answer later, but we're discussing specifically staff transfer process.
Okay, well, if it is in reference to staff transfers, if someone calls, what is the time frame for you getting back to those teachers?
Sure. So
Thank you.
My expectation is within 24 to 48 hours that there's going to be a response. And typically, we meet that timeline. I think as it relates right now, I personally had a teacher email me on Friday, and I responded to her on maybe Tuesday. But typically, it's within 48 work hours. but we have quite a significant volume right now, as I mentioned earlier. So there may be some stragglers that are taking slightly more than 48 hours, but as it relates to the transfer process, staff always have their union to respond to, and I think our response time is typically within 24 hours, but there may be some outliers.
So they should first go to the union and then from the union.
Yeah, I mean, our staff is never left without support, right? They can
Okay.
email human capital at the generic human capital at rcsdk12.org. They can email employee benefits at benefits@rcsdk12.org. We have multiple people that monitor all of those mailboxes. Typically, things are not done by phone anymore. We take calls by Teams. We're pretty consistent in trying to get in touch with people. And I know, you may have missed it, but the team was here till 9:30 last night, aiding and supporting staff nonstop. And so that continues. It's a heavy load at this point in time, I know, for everyone on the team, with all the mass amount of movement that we're going through.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Deputy Turner?
Wanted to add a bit more possible clarification to the question previously regarding teachers on assignments. Teacher on assignments are folks in the system that have been tenured, right, and certified, so they don't necessarily take the place of somebody else. They're internal folks who apply for these positions, and they're also tenured and certified in the area in which is their tenure track. And also, Dr. Miller, it might be helpful to sort of briefly share about how your office is organized so that you're meeting the various needs of the different stakeholders, such as the unions, whether it's RTA, Bente, or so forth, because I think you guys do a great job of making sure that that workload is spread out throughout so that you could have great customer service. So I think it might be helpful to just touch a bit on that.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. So this slide I was going to speak to in a few moments, but it actually just to remind our community and the public about how the Office of Human Capital is organized. It's organized into 4 teams, right? And one is a recruitment and selection team. So they are largely shepherding this whole process right now, which is massive. We have our employee benefits team, we have our staff and educator effectiveness team, and then we have our staff relations team, which works very closely with labor and our union partnership. And so our senior director of staff relations, Megan Abbott, and our director of recruitment and selection, Amaret Miller, they're really working to ensure that we lead this process with fidelity. You'll see them in this picture, along with Matt Lavonis, Martha Keating, and other members of our team. These are the people that are actually leading this work. So when staff have questions or they need support, it's the people here, and I think we owe them a debt of gratitude, one, for their commitment, their work effort, but also the care that they work to provide our staff during these challenging moments. And you think about 1,000+ people going through this process. Vice President LeBron said it in her comments, like, not everybody fully understands this process until they have to engage in it, right? There's lots of teachers who never transfer or don't transfer. And so when you're found in that process of being required to transfer, it can be unsettling. And it's not something you deal with every day, let alone every year, right? Like, we all have to dust off our procedures and look at them because this is stuff we do once a year, right? And not even every year. We haven't had layoffs since 2019. Right? I mean, we've had some singletons, but this kind of comprehensive work that we're going through now is very significant.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller. I'm going to go ahead and you can continue your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we're going to shift briefly here just to highlight employee wellness. And what you see here on this slide are all the kinds of ways that we invest in and commit to serve and care for our staff. And these are all icons and links that are on our Office of Human Capital website. If you were to go to it, you would find these links and you could learn more about our benefits and what we provide our staff. But focusing on employee wellness in a school district is crucial because it leads to increased productivity, reduced absenteeism of staff among teachers and other staff. It directly impacts student learning and achievement. A healthy and supported staff workforce is going to be more engaged and motivated. They're going to help create a more positive and effective learning environment for students. And so it's critical that as an organization, as an employer to nearly 6,000 employees, that we prioritize staff wellness. We want to ensure employee satisfaction and retention. We want to reduce turnover, and we want to ensure continuity for our students. Ultimately, investing in employee wellness enhances the overall success and competitiveness of our school district, which benefits both our staff and our students and our community. And so, particularly since COVID, employers have had to focus on wellness, and they've had to talk about wellness. And if an employer isn't talking about wellness or doing something in the wellness space, then they're probably not a good employer. So we, as an employer, need to do that. And it can't just be the work of the Office of Human Capital. It should be the work of all leaders to think about what we can do to support our staff. Because the better we support our staff, the better they're going to care for, value, respect our students and our community. This is an image I like to use because as an employer, we touch employees for their entire life. And some of our employees grew up, were born in Rochester, went to our schools. Literally, their entire life is touched by the Rochester City School District. And so we take that very seriously to understand and to work to understand each of our employees' situations so that we can care and support them. And our employee benefits team does that work. They literally come to know people when they get hired, when they have their first child, when maybe they get married. All of those are interactions that they have with our office because they have to engage with us to provide information or they have questions about supports. We touch all of those life cycles. And everything we do has an impact. Everything that everyone in this room does has an impact on our ability to recruit and retain. Everyone in our schools has an ability to impact how we recruit and retain. So we have to focus on these things and we have to do them well. Employee wellness is part of that. Addressing healthcare expenses through strategic wellness initiatives can significantly benefit our organization and our employees by reducing turnover and boosting morale. What we spend or invest in wellness has a return that far exceeds what we spend on it. We not only improve our employees' overall well-being, but we positively impact their families, right? They have dependents on our healthcare. They have dependents that rely on their living. And so the more we can focus on wellness, we can have an impact not only on our own students, but our employees and their family. So to do that, over the course of this past year, you see a wellness calendar that's thematic in nature, where we focus on themes to ensure that we put into the space in our organization conversation, thought, attention to things that we know impact wellness. We have opportunities for growth in how we do this work, but I think we've evolved to get to this place where we have a calendar across the year where we're trying to create opportunities for staff to feel appreciated, to feel supported, to learn something new that's going to help them and their families. I draw attention, we're planning some summertime fun this summer, trying to have a showing at a Red Wings game. So trying to do things that engage our staff. Some of you have been to our Rock Holiday Village at Manhattan Square Park where we had an igloo and we were able to support staff. We had RCSD snow hats, we gave out cocoa and coffee and snacks. We do a zoo event every June that is just adored by our staff, where you see staff showing up with their family and just enjoying a day at the zoo. And so we're doing that again this June. Little things that just try to create opportunities for our staff to connect, to feel appreciated, or to learn something new. On this slide, you just see some examples of some of the programming that we've done. You'll see that in April, we really focused on financial literacy and financial wellness. We had workshops all week that people could attend and tune into on Zoom, or they could watch the recording of, mention the zoo. So different ways to engage and to bring importance to our staff. Here are some other images from some of our events, and you can just see the kind of variety of what we're doing to try to bring that care to our employees. The last thing I want to talk about is something that Commissioner Malloy started with, and that is tying human capital to the academic goals. And so Commissioner Malloy highlighted on the slide the goals that the board has. And as an Office of Human Capital, we want to connect our work as directly as possible to the goals of the organization. Sometimes linking what we do in a data-driven way to the academic goals that we have is a little bit of a struggle. But what I want to say about that is, I've mentioned to you before that I'm in a community of practice with other chiefs of human capital from across the nation. Some of our biggest districts, Chicago, New York City, LA Unified, among a few others. And this was a problem of practice I brought to them when I met with them this month, 2 weeks ago, actually. And what I learned from that conversation was, we're all trying to figure this out. And you might think it's a simple thing, but it's not as simple as you might think, right? And the chief of human capital for Chicago has actually been working on this for several years. And he is one of the people that do human capital work look to as like a lighthouse in terms of what they're doing in Chicago. So we are committed as a group to trying to figure this out. And some of the things that we've supposed you see on that right side of the slide, but it's linking the actual data of our work to the academic work, that making those direct connections is a little bit of a challenge, but we're working on it. So my hope is that in September, when we reconvene as a human capital committee, I will have updates on this and we'll have some linkages to show that. It's not for a lack of trying, it's more complicated than you might think at first glance. So with that, my last announcement is I've been tasked to remind everyone that our Educator of the Year program, our 4th annual Educator of the Year ceremony, will be this Thursday, May 23rd at 5 p.m. here in the boardroom. It will be live on Facebook and YouTube, and we're super excited to enter our 4th year. We all saw that in our inaugural year, the first Educator of the Year that we had in the district became the State Educator of the Year, Zach Arens, and he's still in the national competition. So good things are happening in Rochester. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller. I'm going to start to my left this time. If there are any questions regarding the wellness piece or the tying to the academic goals piece. Commissioner Griffin.
Yeah. Actually, I have big concerns as far as our academic goals and our and us going in the right direction with our CTE program. Back when Edison, some time ago, they were allowed to govern their own CTE program. And what they did, the principal did over there at the time, and I want to think it was Jacob Scott, he was able to take on that initiative and was given the budget to do it, and it was successfully done. And they were able to add 8 CTE programs to their actual school, to Edison, which actually was very lucrative to the students there and improving their student outcomes. So my question is, why can't we do the same thing in the other schools, and instead of having the people in the middle that are supposed to be governing the CTE program, why don't we put it into the hands of the principals, as we did before with Edison, as one of our goals for our children, for better student outcomes, and making sure that we have the CTE programs that are going to govern our school, and have the principal move that initiative forward and move the other people out the way that are, as we see, are not doing the job that they should to increase the successful rates of the CTE programs in our school system. So what can we do about that initiative and making sure that that's part of our strategic goals in the schools and increasing all the numbers and making these CTE programs more valuable to our kids? How can we move forward with something like that? And it also would save us a lot of money giving individuals monies that we're not having we don't see an increase in the CTE programs within our schools. So what would you think, excuse me, what would you think about that?
So I just wanted to interject quickly. I think you have some really great thoughts regarding just the academic goals and CTE programming, really important. And I'm wondering if that's something that we could perhaps add to the question log because this is a human capital meeting, and that might fit a little bit more in our ESA meeting that's upcoming, and we meet on a monthly basis.
Well, my concern is
So-
that, you're hiring people in positions, and this is HC, right? This is hiring practices. So if you're hiring people, it may be a thought in the future to maybe think something different along the lines where maybe we can do something different in the schools to increase the initiatives with the principals. Like you said, they're hiring practices for the teachers. So if they have that goal to hire the teachers, and they should also, I think, have an initiative maybe to move those things out the way and save us some money if the people that they're hiring are not doing the jobs that they should. So
you.
it does belong where it's at. And if you can address that for me, how do you feel?
I don't think Dr. Miller is the person who would address that.
on one
So
second.
I'm the chair of this
No,
meeting.
no, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about
So no,
Okay, go ahead, Amy.
You don't,
I think that you're raising some valid concerns. I don't think that Chief Miller is the person who would be answering those this evening, but certainly I know that Deputy Strickland in the ESA meeting could probably address those at an upcoming ESA meeting, or at least put that on a question log, because I don't think that Chief Miller is the one who would answer that question for you this evening.
But he plays a big role in the recruitment of the directors and everything. So I would just want to make sure that putting that out in the atmosphere, he is head of that department. So not everything goes to the deputy. I'm thinking about him as him hiring and he's recruiting. These are some things that we need to think of going forward. So it is there and it is out in the atmosphere. So I understand what you're saying, but also understand that I believe in his position, he has the right to, he puts out these, open recruitments for different teachers and different directors. So I want to make sure that, some things we can do away with and save our district some money if people are not doing what they're supposed to do. Thank you.
Yeah, I can just answer briefly to say that my office doesn't decide what programs get built into the schools. Those decisions are made, and then we determine, okay, we're going to need to hire, let's say, a technology teacher at Edison. We don't actually decide to determine that the technology teacher gets placed there. A program is determined, and then we help the school to fill the need. We don't actually make the decision around whether they get to have that program.
I respect that. I just want to put that in the atmosphere because I think that's something that we need to think about. Thank you. I appreciate your answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller, and thank you, Commissioner Griffin. I'm going to move down the line. I don't have anything to say. Thank you so much for your presentation this evening, Dr. Miller, and I can't wait to see how we're able to tie our recruitment, et cetera. I know this is a difficult committee to tie those academic goals to, as we try to keep them at the forefront of what it is that we're doing and why we're here, which is to educate students. So thank you so much for your openness and just the receptiveness, and I'm very appreciative of the work that you're doing with other HCI chiefs from other districts, and I love to hear that this is a topic that is being explored, and it's a difficult one, so thank you so much for the work that you're embarking on in that regard. I'm going to go right down the line, and Vice President LeBrun.
yes, thank you. And I just want to thank you for that response, because I have a personal gripe when elected officials, whether it's school board, city, or county, misinform the public, even sometimes in their questioning whether it's intentional or not. And I just have to clarify, like, HR in any organization is not the final decision maker on who gets hired or what the needs are, right? So if you were a nonprofit, if you were a business, the director would be the one to
don't have a
direct HR to do the
don't have a-
recruitment, but they will give you the
We don't have a
parameters.
quorum.
Oh,
I'm so sorry, we don't have a quorum because Commissioner Griffin has left.
Yes, we do not have quorum.
And it has to be in person.
We need 4 people in person. Can we take just
I
a
think
brief
Isaiah went to the
recess?
bathroom. Yeah, we can
Just
take
take a brief
recess.
recess until the commissioners return.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so we'll, just to the public, we're going to take a brief recess for about 5 minutes, and then we'll reconvene following the recess. Thank you, and sorry for any inconvenience. Thank you so much to the public for that brief pause. We have a quorum again, and I just wanted to allow Vice President LeBron to continue her comments that she was making before we had to break quorum.
Thank you, and my comments were related to misinformation, and I do think, you know, there is actually a lot of misinformation in the community, but also lack of information, because sometimes you actually have to be in these systems in the process to have a better understanding, as you highlighted, even with educators who never transfer and suddenly have to transfer and find themselves learning a new process, even if they've been here 20 years, but that it's also where the Rochester City School District is in a different sort of unique position, just like county and city, because we do have collective bargaining units, right? So if you're a nonprofit or a business, you have more autonomy in these decisions. And with us, we are heavily regulated through our contracts, right? And all those things are negotiated, even how decisions are made are often negotiated by both sides, and we have to come to an agreement. Regarding wellness, I just want to shout you and your team out, because this was something that didn't exist this comprehensively a few years back. I know that there have been efforts made by HCI in the past, and they always have like an annual wellness, but to be intentional about doing more for wellness for thousands of people, I just also have to uplift that we're talking about thousands at a time, and not like myself with my team of 6. Like, this is thousands of people that we're trying to uplift wellness for. And I love a lot of the events, and I love that there's a 12-month calendar, essentially or a wellness calendar to, again, be more intentional and mindful. And I just want to thank you and your team for that, and I hope that all of our staff participate in the opportunities to do like the zoo and the winter event and all the other things that are on the calendar to support. And I just want to throw it out there too, that if staff want to give feedback to some wellness ideas, that perhaps they may be able to reach out to HCI with some additional suggestions just for the future calendar. I think we would get actually some good responses on things we probably haven't thought about. And then I actually want to uplift Commissioner Malloy as taking over HR as the committee, and just having us actually focus on the things that are critical to HCI that in the past we haven't been. We've tried to figure out what this committee should be focused on, not focus on, and this is the first time that the HR committee is saying we're tied back to actual board goals. Regardless of whether people who voted on it have an issue or not, the fact is that the board set the goals and the board voted on these goals. But again, just uplift and highlighting that this is actually the first time ever that the Human Resources Committee is tied back to actual board goals. So kudos to you and kudos to Commissioner Malloy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice President. I also just wanted to quickly, before I pass it off to President Elliott, the wellness activities, they have been phenomenal. And I would also encourage all of our board to participate in these wellness activities as well. Walktober is a favorite. I've done this 2 years in a row. And perhaps some golf tournaments in the future. There is a School Without Walls golf tournament in August, and I'm trying to put something together with board peers. I think that might be a great opportunity to continue supporting our students. But kudos to you and your team for organizing so many wellness activities and recognizing that employee wellness goes hand in hand with our ability to reach students and help reach those outcomes. So thank you very much. President Elliott.
Thank you. I'm thinking about, when we're talking about wellness, there's so much that's going on in our world. When we're looking at what's going on with Israel and Hamas and, just things that are happening within our community. I just want to offer this as an opportunity for your consideration, that there may be an opportunity there for lectures, meaning that people can come together if they would like to be able to talk about those particular issues, whatever those issues may be. So I just wanted to offer that, is there a place? Because those kinds of events, they do weigh on the mind and the heart. And, we could do the other things, which is good, but sometimes you just need a place to talk about those things, a safe place. So I would offer that as well. We're trying to pull together at my job an employee wellness welfare committee ourselves, and about doing things together and things that we can offer as incentives and what have you for employee engagement and job satisfaction. So I understand the value of that around retention and what have you. So thank you for this work. Are there a lot of people that participate in these programs?
So, thank you for that question. It's difficult, right? Because we do have thousands of employees, and some of the events that we host are capped, right? So like the Rock Holiday Village, we took reservations and we could only have a few hundred people involved. We would love to have more, and we have a wait list. So that does happen sometimes, unfortunately, but we strive to create the kinds of opportunities that all staff can access. So like when we had the Financial Awareness Month, we had a week where there were sessions all week long. There was even a will writing session that was great for people, and if they participated, they got a free will or drafted for them. So we're trying to do things and a lot of different things that staff can access.
You all have Costco cards?
Costco cards? No, I don't think we actually get Wegmans cards that we have.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And I would be remiss if I did not thank the employee benefits team, particularly Dr. Joe Sergio, who's the senior director of that team, and the assistant director, Rebecca Torres. They obviously are implementing this work, so I don't want to take all the credit for that.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Commissioner, do you have any questions? Nope, none at this time. Deputy Turner, would you like to add anything?
I just wanted to underscore also, the wellness activities, events are not only a nice thing to do for staff to send a message that we sincerely care holistically about our staff, but I know offhand 4 individuals who came and said because they've attended the health fair, cause they were advised to go visit their doctor and discovered that they had underlying conditions that they were not aware of. 4 individuals, all the way from diabetes to high blood pressure. Because we often get busy, or at a certain age, you don't see a doctor every year. Maybe you see them every 2-3 years. So I just wanted to also say that, it would not be out of bounds to say in some aspects it was life-saving, and we've heard that feedback. So kudos to you and your team, and thank you for what you do. Most of it you don't have to do, right? But it's really sincerely the care that we have for our staff and an attempt to really serve the holistic individual.
Thank you so much, Deputy Turner. State Monitor, do you have anything that you would like to add to the conversation?
Thank you. Just great presentations, and I just want to go back and reinforce the comment that President Elliott made before about looking at the staff in the future and right-sizing the district. We know that funding coming from the state is based on students enrollment, and the enrollment is going down in the district. So that is one of the areas that the board needs to continue to focus on. But great presentation, great work getting the staff engaged in the district and providing opportunities for people for personal growth. So thank you.
Thank you, State Monitor. And last but certainly not least, Commissioner Simmons.
I appreciate you. No questions at this time.
Thank you so much. And that completes or concludes the Human Capital meeting. Our next meeting is going to be September 17th, and certainly we'll be taking much of what has been recommended under advisement, and hopefully, as Vice President LeBron said, looking at starting to present on the transfer process earlier and getting that out earlier to people at some of our meetings. So thank you for that recommendation. I'm going to hand the gavel over at this time to President Elliott.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to go into executive session? Yeah, because to discuss matters related to the employment of a particular individual or other matters permitted by Section 105 of the Open Meetings Law, and to receive advice from General Counsel. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Moved by Vice President LeBron. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Commissioner Malloy. We will go into executive, all in favor?
Aye.
So we will go into executive session and we will adjourn from downstairs. Thank you. Have a great night.